feel free to to speak and ask your questions and so forth. So, hey everyone, welcome. My name is Rob Beeler. I think we have some people here I don't know. It's good to connect with you. This concept is first impressions, and so the idea that I've had is that all of us want to see more product and understand what the tech providers provide us, and at the same time, just doing kind of a one-on-one demo. I will tell you, I always had the question, what did I not think to ask? What did everyone else ask? Right? So I don't want to look dumb by the fact I didn't think to ask a question. And so this is kind of like crowdsourcing that particular piece. It is also, I'll just say, a special occasion because I did go and find a button-down shirt and put it on for the first time in a month or so, and it fit. So, getting through this. But it's good to kind of put this together. Today we're going to be talking with FatTail, and they want to kind of share some concepts around sales enablement. And kind of full disclosure, I am a client. I do use AdBook on a daily basis, and actually just got that kind of implemented. And my goal with that, quite honestly, as an order management system, my measurement of my KPI, if you will, was all based on efficiency. Can I get account management to add ops to work? Okay, now can I work with sales to get that, and linking all the pieces together for efficiency's sake. But while all that's going on, I'm continually being asked, and I'm sure all of you are, is revenue. How do we grow and drive revenue? And so the idea of an order management system, which is such a backroom type of thing, most people don't get to see it, putting it out there and maybe making it something that people work with or connect those dots so that it actually can improve sales, grow sales and revenue, I think is an interesting one. What I would say is this. You may not be a FatTail client. You might use something else. That's okay. We could go through the demo and you can get some of the concepts and figure out whether that's something you could get elsewhere. But the fact of the matter is, I think they've got something that's pretty interesting here that they've built. They've certainly got this idea. And I think some of what you should all be doing is thinking through, again, your own personal scenario, and through chat, feed me questions. I'll work them in, might put them toward the end. I am looking for you to help drive. All of you come from different size organizations, different setups, all these types of things. That nuance is what drives this conversation. That's where you'll come up with some ideas of like, I hadn't really thought of that before. So, well, I think that's enough preamble because, again, part of my whole concept here was to get out of doing lots of preamble and into the product. That being said, the one thing I've learned after having done a couple of these is that if I just say and yell at Al, go like, I just want to see a demo, show me product, everyone spends all their time going like, I haven't seen the screen before, where am I? So with this concept, I am going to allow them to do some slides, okay? And I'm positioned that way. He's going to go through some slides to set it, but I'm going to tell you right now, I want to get to the product and the discussion part. So Al and Rachel, I'm going to turn that over to you, and can you kind of walk us through what this sales enablement thing and some of what you're thinking about?
Definitely. Thanks, Rob. So as Rob mentioned, everyone kind of wants to see the thing in action. So we will try and be brief on the slides. I'll try and be even more brief on the intro, kind of who we are and what we do. For those of you who don't know, FatTail, our order management platform, AdBook, has been around a long time. The company itself was founded in 2001. We have a lot of different publishers, many who I see on here right now. Some very long-time clients, 15 years plus, that have been with us. We cover the gamut of the verticals, digital native, broadcast, print, etc. I mean, if it exists, we cover it, and we're really good at implementing, and we're really, publisher-centric. Myself, I've been with the company for 12 years. I'm on the sales side now, but I actually began in the client services team and actually ran my own implementations. With me today is also Rachel Friedman, who's on the product side, And she has more than 9 years experience in the media space. She was actually on the publisher side as well. And I actually had the pleasure of working with Rachel in an implementation when she was with Hearst. So she knows your pains very, very well. Wanted to talk really quickly about our mission. Our mission statement, as you can see, is super, super simple. We want to help publishers thrive. Unfortunately, we have to add that and survive given the times, because in today's environment, thriving really just means surviving and getting out, through the end of this COVID thing. But we really believe that premium content is valuable, and we want to make sure that the providers of such premium content are succeeding. Not going to spend a ton of time here, but just there's some key information about us so you can get a sense of the type of scale that we're used to dealing with and the type of publishers that we're used to dealing with. So thought it was important for you guys to kind of get this information and know a little bit more about who we are. All right, told you the intro is going to be short. Let's get to the good stuff. The concept that we're talking about today is the evolution of the OMS. Where are we today? It's exactly what Rob said. We are at a place where most of us are using our OMS just for operational efficiency and straight through processing. We want to make sure that everything connects and that we're not having to do any double entry. And that's where most folks that we've talked to have stopped. We've started to think about this differently because, as Rob mentioned, our goal is to help you drive revenue. And so where do we want to be? Where we want to be is what we call client enablement. That's kind of the holy grail to where you're getting that direct relationship with the client and making that relationship as easy and as streamlined as possible. But you can see that's a big circle, and we have a very little circle, and there's a step in between. Because in order for us to get here, we need to get to sales enablement. And what sales enablement is think of your company right now, and again, you're being asked to drive as much revenue as possible. And so we need to make it as easy as possible for your sales team and your sales planning team to be effective in selling more inventory while maintaining that operational efficiency. So what we're going to show you today are some really great tools that'll help you make more money, do it faster, and then provide a better level of service to your client. So with that brief intro, I'll go ahead and I'll turn it over to Rachel, who's going to walk you through some of these concepts in more detail.
Thanks, Al. So like Al mentioned, sales enablement is really about helping you sell better and make more money. And how are we going to get there? Through the tools that you see on screen. A discovery-based approach for building your product catalog, which is a highly curated approach to guiding your sellers on what they should sell. Dynamic pricing, so once you've guided sellers to know what they should sell, giving them the tools to know how much they should sell it for. And lastly, a point of sale focused Salesforce integration. And where this is key, for those of you that do have Salesforce integrations, it's about access to these tools. So it's great if you have a toolbox that can enable your sellers in terms of what they sell and how they should be selling it. But if it's not in the system in which those sellers work, they're not useful. So I'm going to spend most of my time on those first two items. But as you look at everything that we're going to do from this point forward, keep in mind that our Salesforce integration allows you to have the exact same experience in Salesforce as it does in AdBook. So whether or not you have that integration, if you do, you get the same experience. If you don't, you can get that experience directly from AdBook. So before we go into the solution, I wanted to start and talk a little bit about the problem. You'll notice on the slide here that we've titled it The Paradox of the Product Catalog. And what does that paradox mean? We have this tool that was designed to improve efficiency, like most things in an order management system, but it's become so large and complicated that it actually makes the sales and planning process harder, which costs your organization money. So what was a product catalog designed to do? Right? It was designed to offer standardization, more control over what you sell and how you sell it, handle operational complexity, so streamlining operations by handling how it needs to be executed downstream in an ad server or any other execution platform, and enforce any kinds of business controls that you need in terms of how things need to get sold, how you report on it, how you price it. And the problem is that as businesses continue to become more complex, think of all the ways in which your business has grown to have different types of targeting, different brands, sales methods. That product catalog continues to grow with the complexity. And if you take a look here on the right-hand side of the screen, we put together some examples to demonstrate what that typically looks like in a product catalog, and expand that by all of the different types of targeting you have and the permutations, and you end up with a product catalog that's really difficult to use. And we've seen it grow into thousands for some of our clients, which really is unsustainable for the end user, and even from just a management standpoint. How do you keep track and maintain your product catalog and everything that goes into it?
Well, I can say that even today we had conversations around, again, product organization. And again, we're just starting. We're not up to the thousands yet, right? But you immediately run into that, trying to keep it organized, trying to keep it clear, trying to think through all the places you report and pass that through. And the organization becomes really kind of a complex thing that you're trying to do. You're trying to keep your world simple, right? And it's hard. It's hard. It just easily, so many different things that you can do. So I feel this. That's what I'm saying.
Yep, exactly. And that point of simplicity is really what we want to focus on. So how do we take this thing that has become so complicated and in some ways can be a roadblock to selling better and more strategically, and simplifying it so that it's easier to use and enables your sales teams. So what we have here in the box on the left is how we've traditionally tackled the problem. So we know lots of our clients have these large product catalogs, and we've offered organization tools using a product hierarchy, search capabilities, unlimited metadata to meet reporting needs. But we found that that still doesn't move the needle far enough for our clients. And so with the help of our clients, we went back to the drawing board to rethink the concept of a product catalog so that it's easy and simple to use at the point of sale. And we came to this realization that, what is a product? A product is really nothing more than a collection of targeting with a price. And as that targeting changes, the price should change as well. And that was the lens that we used to create this discovery-based catalog approach. And the discovery-based approach reduces your product catalog to its core components. And then using the set of tools that you see on screen in the right-hand box, you're able to guide the user through the booking process and enforce business rules so that you're dynamically displaying and requiring fields and curating lists along the way. The result is that the user can easily translate client sales goals and build a product on the fly, while dynamically behind the scenes adjusting any targeting that's needed to maintain operational efficiency.
So I'm going to say, as you go through this, that concept of a product is nothing but the targeting is one I'm going to have to continually think about. That one challenges me. And then the idea that I'm going to enable my salespeople by getting rid of the products and letting them create, you're going to have to step me through that. But this is not all set up. Like that is something I'm genuinely concerned about. Like, you know, that takes a certain level of skill and whatever, but I'm interested in the concept because especially to that point you made the last slide about salespeople selling the same thing over and over again is definitely a problem, right? And then at the same time, they always want us to be creative. So if I can shift that energy That to me is kind of interesting. But yes, I need you to keep you as you get into this. I'm sure you'll get into get me there.
Rob, before we go to the next slide, if I can just kind of set the table a little bit, though, is the salespeople that we've encountered kind of fall into one of two camps. The first camp you just mentioned, which is they sell the same thing over and over again, or the second camp is they do what we just said anyways, and you have to figure out how to make it work operationally in a very complex way.
Right.
And so we want to get them to the second point, but that when they're doing it that way, they're also setting all the operational efficiencies downstream.
Got it. Okay. So it's a bit of corralling and at the same time leading them, getting them out of their pens.
It's working with their natural instincts is really what it is.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. So now that we've redefined the concept of a product, how do you make more money? So the very same reasons that it's hard to manage an ever-growing product catalog is why managing rates has been so difficult. Add to that the constantly changing ways in which we sell that impact your bottom line. Think of the last few years, viewability, audience fees, partnership fees. This results in many publishers managing their rates outside of a system, which is a little like the wild, wild west. And if your rate card is not in your system of record, you're most likely leaving money on the table. Having rates in an OMS gives you transparency. So sellers know what they can sell and for how much. It gives you, as an organization, accountability. So you know what people are selling, how they're selling according to the rates that you set as an organization, and you have the tools to enforce a pricing strategy. And then lastly, profitability. So tools to automatically set pricing adjustments, to think of all those different permutations of how you can sell so that salespeople remember all of the pricing details that need to get included. And some of these rate cards can get real complicated depending on the organization. So when we're thinking about this new world where we've said product is really about its targeting components, it's dynamic and can be built on the fly, your pricing tools need to be flexible enough to dynamically adjust rates as the user is building out their products and their plan. So what we have here on the right-hand side are some examples of how dynamic pricing could be applied to your product catalog. So thinking of different factors, going back to what we talked about, you have base products, and then, someone comes in, builds their products on the fly, layering on targeting, choosing the date range that they're going to be set, and to be able to show the user and trigger different premiums or discounts based on what the user is selecting. As they're selecting it, you can offer and show what something should be sold at on the fly. And these are just a few examples of how you can apply some of the tools that we have.
So let's hold for that for just 1 second. And I want to get going because I want to see product, right? But there's a piece of this that I'll just throw out to the whole group. Are there any of these types of kind of rate card or, these kind of discounts or changes or premiums that you do, which ones do you use or do you need to use or aren't listed here? I'd be kind of curious as while you keep going, might sit there and kind of circle back and think about what scenarios. I certainly think in terms of seasonality, that advertiser agency is interesting. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone actually apply that, but certainly when you get to data level targeting, demographics, geography, all those types of things, certainly in my mind, immediately key off that we want to create premiums around those additional things, right? So, timing, that's an interesting one though. I got to say, if you're going to give me time to actually book a campaign, I'd be interested in a discount there. So anyway, yeah, please. Cool. So keep going. But everyone, I want you in the chat, just throwing some stuff out there. I might call on you.
All right.
All right, we have one last slide before we jump into the demo. And this is just to kind of give some context before Al goes in and shows this in action of what this looks like to the person booking a product and the tools that they have available to them on screen, where they can be able to see what type of premiums or discounts might have been applied to their rates based on the targeting that they've applied. If you have some type of strategy where your sales team can have a range in which they can discount their offering, they're able to see what that range is, and they're able to see whether or not what they want to pitch to a client is out of policy for the organization. So they have all the tools on screen to be able to make the right decisions and have more meaningful conversations with their clients and be able to say, okay, I'm looking here, this vendor fee, added a little bit more, maybe I should pitch something else because it doesn't work. And also be able to articulate the value of what's being offered and why the rate might be a little bit higher for this type of product. It's because you've layered on, you've layered on the most expensive kind of targeting and you're trying to run in the most expensive time of year. So if you want to maybe move to a different period, you can have some flexibility. So you're able to articulate the value for the rates that are being offered. You're able to have the flexibility to negotiate, and you're able to see on screen kind of if you're still out of policy and make those conversations and kind of just streamlines the whole process instead of kind of going out with something, all the back and forth, all of the approvals that are in place, and you really have the tools to work with here.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, so that's it for me.
All right, Rob, you got your wish.
Yeah, I want to see. I got to see this in action. All right, I conceptually am there. Let me see it.
Okay, let's show it to you. Let me know when everyone can see my screen.
Yep, I can see it. I recognize that screen.
Yeah. So where we are, for those of you who are not, who have not seen AdBook or don't use it, we're in kind of our campaign entry screen. I'll just quickly go through where we provide some campaign information, some contact information, and where we're going to spend the majority of our time today is adding line items, because that's the fun part. So what I do now is I am pretending to be either a salesperson, yes, it can be done, and more likely a planner. And what I have here is a list of products that I've created using this discovery-based approach. Now, one of the things that I want to show you, because what we did in that previous screenshot that we saw was we basically took the same concepts and we built them out like they would in a normal product catalog, and then we built the exact same concepts into this one. And then we go from hundreds of products to this. This is your entire product catalog with this discovery-based approach. And notice, by the way, that I'm not just putting like just a handful of display things. We have emails here, we have apps, display, social, video. There's a wide run of different media types that are being represented here, and it's all handled in 50, maybe 60 products. And so the idea here is that the approach moves a lot less to hunting and pecking for a given product out of thousands, and then just picking, as Rachel mentioned, a core concept that allows you to then build out from there. So you can see I've added this one product on here. The core price, rate card price, is added automatically because we do have that functionality, and all I need to do is put in the number of impressions that I'm going to create. And we're just going to do a very simple example now, just for the sake of time here. So now what do we do? Because that's just not nearly enough information. You can see we've built a section in AdBook that we've referred to as the discovery-based booking section. As I mentioned, I built in a lot of the concepts that we had built out in those previous screenshots. So for some of our larger clients will have 2, 3, 15 brands that they deal with, and part of why these product catalogs get so big is that you have basically all of the concepts that you sell for brand 1, all of the concepts that you sell for brand 2, 3, and so on. So now your product catalog is growing 3-fold, 5-fold, 15-fold. Here, it's a very different concept. All we have to do is select brand A and B. Now that is tied to targeting, which I'll show you in a sec, that would set something like an ad unit in this case. So automatically you're setting certain targeting parameters for that. Next, we go to the targeting strategy. Am I going to sell this thing audience-based or contextual-based? Let's say I want to go contextual. We have a second field that automatically appears telling me what kind of contextual, Al. Well, it's either content or it's section. So let's go ahead and choose content. And as you can see, the system is guiding me through the experience so that based on the decisions that I make, it's giving me the things that are available for me to sell. So let's say I wanted to add arts and entertainment. You'll notice over here on the right, I pinned our rate card field. And by doing that, it's added this $4.40 CPM premium, because by choosing content targeting, we're doing an initial premium that we're going to charge. But let's just say the client wants to do multiple contents. You'll notice that not only the premium is still applied, but now we're applying a discount on top of that, because as you expand out your universe of content, you're getting closer to run of sight, and thus it ought to be cheaper. So these are all things that you can set automatically, and so and the user doesn't even need to know anything about it. They're just putting in the things that the client told them to sell. If we keep going down, let's just say I wanted to add something like viewability. I'm going to go ahead and, I mean, it's almost impossible to 100% guarantee, but let's just pretend we're living in happy land. But you'll notice too that this geo groupings below filtered down from 3 to 1. And the reason is in the logic in my head, well, if we're going to do 100% guarantee, we don't want to be able to reduce the inventory down so small, because we'll never be able to serve anything. So we're going to restrict what other things that that the seller can pitch if you're going with this type of viewability. So in this case, we just pared down that geo grouping.
So I just want to go through that real quick. So what I just heard is that the logic that some of these particular elements around the targeting, as I go through them, I can reduce the other options so that, again, someone wouldn't just get arts and entertainment and then say geo, because we've agreed as an organization,
Correct.
You can't sell that.
Correct.
Right? Where right now my screen allows you to just go down and pick whatever, and it's all the elements. This
Yes.
is more guided, and then saying, oh, you're adding a layer. And then of course there's the logic, and just real quick, the logic in terms of some of these CPMs and so forth, those can be percentage based or they can be hard cut. Like, does that matter?
That's a great question. So you'll notice that that real value has been added here in terms of either CPM or flat rate, but they can be percentage based, it can be CPM based, or it can be just a flat amount that's amortized throughout the value of the line.
Okay.
So it counts for like those fees. Like if you had something that was like a $100 fee to use, we could literally apply the $100 fee to the total there and just amortize it. And then something like viewability would be more percentage based, where something like an audience segment is likely going to be a CPM bump. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So and to an earlier point that you mentioned, Rob, not only can we reduce the options, but we can also expand. So if I'm picking something, it's going to expand out the things I can sell. So it goes both ways. It's not just restrictive. It can also be inclusive. So let's go ahead and just add all the targeting, because this is a demo and it's fun.
If you want to go and sell me a $39 CPM deal, Al, that would really be the demo I'd really want to see.
Oh, that would be a test of my skills, right?
Yes.
So one of the reasons I added this largest DMA, I mentioned that we mentioned earlier that we have the ability to add targeting in addition, because you've been seeing the pricing change and adjust itself based on all the criteria. You also notice that starting point that we had of $22, the system is telling me now, by the way, all those goodies that you added, you're now out of policy. You're now way too low. And again, as Rachel showed you in that last slide, we're presenting the user with what their new minimum floor is based on the rules that you've put in place. Now, the user can submit this. There is a way, and there's workflow that we put in, but what's going to happen then is that their manager, or whomever you decide as part of your workflow, is going to get a notification saying that Al just sold a product that should be sold for almost $40 for 22. So I'm probably going to get a talking to by my sales manager.
Sold or proposed?
Proposed, sorry.
Right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
He just proposed, because we can actually restrict the selling part until the approval part happens. So that's a very good catch. But again, I mentioned, not only does it do that, it also enables you to set targeting down below for the operations team. And this particular instance of our AdBook environment isn't connected to a DFP instance like yours is, Rob. And so we don't get the full, suite of options imported. And so the only thing I could really show you is by setting that geo control here, you can see that I set those DMA regions. And that behaves the same with device targeting here. But as you'll notice, like our key values and ad units are blank. So we actually import those in from our client's instance of GAM. And so if you're not connected, there's not going to be anything there. But it's a one-to-one match. So you can build that complex targeting around audiences the same way you saw me do that geo. And so
everyone right now should be thinking through some scenarios, right, of how to think about this, right? And those are kind of our questions, right? Because so what I have in mind, like as a small one, right, is the fact that almost all our stuff we target to the US only, right? So great, we could build that in, that it automatically does that. We don't have to choose that. But if someone wanted to, they chose international, it doesn't matter. Again, that just expanded, and maybe we even do something related to the CPM related to that. And this is not done by trafficking. This is done by account management and or sales.
Yeah, the idea, Rob, is because as you can see, there's a lot happening behind the scenes. And so there is a fair amount of complexity that we need to work out with the operations team to build the rules. But the idea is, once we do that, we make it easy enough so that the planners get something that looks much more like what they're talking to the client about, and entering that in, and is building using these multiple preset concepts out the targeting in such a way so that when ops gets it, it's already built correctly. So ops doesn't have to worry about now maintaining tens of thousands of products, each with their hyper-targeted view that they restrict, 100%. You have this more dynamic flow, which ops is still in 100% control of, but it's just a matter of how it behaves and what type of experience we want to provide at the point of sale.
Got it. So my question to the group is anyone thinking along these ways, tried this, or what are all the obstacles that come in your mind as to why you can't do this? You hit one that obviously I think of right off the top of my head, which is the thinking ahead of time.
Yep.
Right. But there's an aspect of and again, you said this kind of experience can be in Salesforce.
Yes.
Right. That gets to me really interesting in terms of letting salespeople see how some of the sausage is made, right? Including the rate card in that process. You got to think through how the sausage is made, right? So that they can figure that out.
And just because we're talking about how the sausage is made, we do have the ability to restrict views by role. So we can let the salesperson see this discovery-based portion of the sausage, but hide all of the real DFP level sausage making. Because they usually, these are pretty complex controls that a salesperson typically doesn't care about. They just need to know that this up here translate to that below and that it works. And so again, we can have that really curated experience for the salesperson, because you want to make it as simple as possible. Otherwise they're not going to use it. But at the same time, the ops team does maintain that control. And you're right, thinking ahead does, that is a big part of it. But ultimately, where the freedom that this gives you is immense, because it's easier to build plans, and it can even be made to be built by a seller. And why is it easier to build plans? For the planners who are on right now, let's just say you threw out this contextual targeted plan out to your client. They're like, hey, Al, thanks, but you know what? Audience is all the rage these days. No one's doing contextual. I want to switch my view out and kind of switch my budget around and just target the audiences that you have on your publisher. Well, today, most planners in most systems, what you have to do then is you remove the line that you pitched, you add a new line, and you hope that all of the stuff that you did was the same. And it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of needless work. Because this is so dynamic, All I have to do now is go, whoop, content's gone, moving from contextual to audience.
Sound effect provided by Al that doesn't come standard with the system. You have to pay extra for the whoop.
So you'll notice, by the way, when I removed the content, that pricing went back down because I removed those elements that were driving my price up. So now let's just say I wanted to add the audience, pricing gets inserted back in, and it all adjusts on the fly, and it's all in front of the salesperson, providing them with the information, or the sales planner providing them with the information that they need.
Got it.
And I think you made an interesting point, Rob, about, surfacing this information to sellers. And a lot of what I've heard is really, all this stuff is way too complicated, and sellers should be focused on selling. And so the goal here is about removing that complexity and making it easier so that sales has the tools to have more strategic conversations with the clients.
Right. I mean, if they're doing this, they could probably do this like with the client on the call.
On site.
Right. On site.
Yes. That was my next point, because if you make it easy enough for them to do easily, now that becomes a benefit instead of the order entry becomes a benefit instead of a hindrance, because they can go to the client site. Okay, what do you want? Do you want audience? Do you want viewability? Do you want some geos here? Let's add this all in. And now I can check my avails, because remember, we're setting the targeting. So that avails up there. And again, I mean, we're not in a connected instance, but that avails will come to them in real time. And since all of the logic behind the scenes has been curated by the ad ops teams, you can have confidence that they're not, going rogue and setting things up and pitching something that doesn't exist.
And so, yeah, so if I've got that connection, then so some real simple, hey, let's geo target. How many impressions do I have for our standard ad sizes in the future? You can go in here, show availability, and know that you're kind of in the clear.
Correct.
Right. One of the things that I know that I hit, and again, why don't you take off the screen for the moment, so we can all see everyone, or do I do that? Did I turn you off? You can there.
I can turn myself off.
See, I can see everyone now again. All right, cool. I guess so one of the things I could think of as somewhat of an objection or something I have to deal with is everything we do is customized, right? It's just we continually go like, oh yeah, we wanted like arts and sciences and selling that, or audience A as you had it. That's the goal. The goal is that it's always audience A with a twist or whatever. So I guess how does that play into creating a dynamic? I mean, getting you there conceptually, but help me.
Yeah. So, I mean, like everything is customized to a degree, right? I think that's a problem that the current product catalog runs into today, which is you try and create for every possible iteration that you could ever sell. But if you have 1,000 audiences and 100 ad units, the amount of permutations that are possible is too many, right? And so this actually gets you there better, because one of the presets can be setting your ad unit kind of level, like where am I targeting? And then another preset can be who am I targeting? Now, if you got like those things can hold an awful lot of audiences, but we also have the ability, because I mean, we're not replacing the ad ops process like you saw.
Right.
You could still make changes below. We're just setting kind of on the planning phase, as much as we can, as easily as we can. Because let's be real, even in the planning phase on those more complex bespoke products, ad ops is still going afterwards and making those changes to make it happen. So it's not like that disconnect doesn't exist already today. We could make it better even if we don't 100% solve it all the way.
So the easy stuff flies through. The custom stuff, at least someone could start to work on the pieces of it and then kind of get that stop, as opposed to having products that, again, that might not work.
Yeah, and to be honest, most of those custom type conversations, you're most likely going to be working very closely with someone on the ops side, because you're building something that's not standard. It's out of the box.
Right.
You've maybe never sold it before. You may not want to sell it to somebody else again. So you're already having those conversations and partnerships, and you're able to still build that as you need, but it's not sitting there off the shelf for everyone to pick off and pitch.
It's always been my policy to not let salespeople talk to ad ops. I don't even return their calls. It's just It's made life much easier. But no, I get your point about the customizations. You kind of talked about the discovery piece, right?
Yep.
So I guess what you're saying is that with that screen, like audiences as being an option. So one of the things I've always seen in all my years is AdOps creates data related products, audience related products. That's what salespeople say they want, and then they sit, right? Many a DMP gathers dust, just waiting for someone to go sell that segment I spent whatever amount of time to do. The idea is that you're saying is that through that kind of process that you've built, I get to ask the question or ask that salesperson the question, have you thought about an audience segment? Which again, at some point allows that kind of, down that path. Oh, I wonder what that would do. Or that seems to me like a pretty light way to do it. How else can someone discover products that maybe they're not selling or what's available?
Yeah, we tried to keep it pretty simple here, Rob, but we've seen other clients ask kind of even earlier stage questions like, what's your goal? Are you trying to do branding? Is it performance based, et cetera? And then setting different criteria of options that we think best suit that. And
Stop there. So you're saying I could build into the process to actually ask what kind of campaign this is or line item or whatever.
Yes.
Get that, and then all the other features after that build off that question. So if it's performance, forget all this stuff. Let's go right to this.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't know that you could do that. I'll be honest with you. That's a new one. I didn't catch that one.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to minimize clicks, but in that case, it's an important question, right? Because if you want to curate the options that you want to offer based on the answer of what the goal in mind of the salesperson is, then that's something that we have seen done. Yes.
Interesting. All right.
And it's all configuration based, so you can ask as many questions or as few as you like, and again, totally change the experience for the user based off of that.
Got it. All right. I've done enough questions. I would love to see some questions. I know some of you out there, so I can see the names and whatever. Don't make me call on you. But some of you must have already hit the point of like, yes, but this won't work for me. I'd love to hear what that is.
Yep.
Or, but can I do this? Who wants to offer up the first objection or idea that you haven't tried yet? Go ahead, Heather.
So we have a very interesting set of use cases where we have groupings based on geos. So we actually restrict where sales can sell things based on what geo region they're looking for. So we actually kind of do almost the reverse logic there sometimes. And I'm wondering, is that something that the system could handle based on that?
So you're saying define geo groupings and then restrict which ones are available per user?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we even had an example of that here. Let me go back to the share real quick. So if I go back to brand C, you'll notice that we had this geo groupings, and it was restricted by viewability, but it can be restricted by any field that can be tied to a user role. And so instead of having this entire, DFP geo control, which has a ton of stuff, which is useful, we can curate it down to 3, 10, 50, even 100, whatever, and say, okay, I want NYC metro area, bam. And now I go below, and on the DFP side, it's adding in all the NYC metro area. So absolutely can do that, no problem.
So taking off that what that tells me is that by salesperson, I can restrict by something like geo, right? So they're only selling particular things and or products. This is aspirational, but the aspirational is that I might not allow someone to sell audience until they've gone through and kind of completed some kind of training around it, right? So in other words, there's a piece of this of going like, hey, let's just help them guide them through it. There's also a part of like, you don't get the whole audience thing. So you don't get to sell it until you're gone through that particular training.
So also doable, Rob. So one of the things that's a little bit different about our tool, we don't have like a dedicated module or anything for sales. What we do, we have roles, and we can have as many roles as we like. So we usually start out with the basics: planners, salespeople, ops, etc. But we could have basically planner or salesperson level 1, salesperson level 2, and again, remember, they can show, that allows us to show or hide any of the fields that you see here. So we could easily do, like, you know, Rob or Al, you're still in level 1, so until then, the option for audience, it ain't an option for you. You know, whereas once I hit level 2, it becomes an option that I can select.
Interesting. Interesting. What else? I can build off something that Jared shared here, but I am curious if anyone else wanted to throw out a scenario or an obstacle. So building off what Jared has, non-endemic discounts, right? So he's Major League Fishing, right? So that makes sense that he's got certain advertisers he's going to give certain pricing to, and everyone else gets a different set. That I saw doable. That seems to be there. Then sponsorship level, right? Based on the overall yearly spend. So again, that sounds like in kind of the composition of this is identifying the different advertisers you have, their different spend levels, and trying to build off of that.
So we handle that a little different, and I think Rachel covered it in one of the slides, Rob, where we have not only the ability, because you've seen us do within a given rate card that dynamic pricing, but we also have the ability to have multiple rate cards and have multiple rate cards and have a rate card assigned to an advertiser or an agency. And the way that we handle that scenario is that you would basically have, and I'll use Group M because they're my favorite example. And let's say you have Group M level 1, 2, and 3. And so what you can do is once you hit kind of that annual spend, you just flip the level 2 rate card as a default to Group M, and all new orders will use kind of that level 2, tier 2 rate at that point.
Interesting. Interesting.
And we have clients who are using that functionality that way today.
So with the people that have got their cameras on that are publishers, and or anyone that is not, you can put them there. So are you using this? Is this is my first impression kind of going through this. I'm kind of curious as to whether, yeah, why not? Or, because I see some stuff here, right? Like I see how there's some aspects of working with my salespeople in a different way, and even getting more into the system earlier so that I could do stuff and work through and understand my rate card and so forth. Anyone want to venture thoughts? And you may be muted, so you may just have to unmute. You can unmute if you like. Come on, people.
I'll speak for a second. I don't have any specific thoughts on the salesperson aspect of that, because the way we handle ours, we use a Salesforce tool to put in an order, and then we manually book an AdBook. But a couple comments I will say, a couple years ago, we added in event products and print products to our media tree as we pulled all of that into AdBook to manage all of our products in one platform. And as Sarah knows very well, because she helped me talk through that process, you know, we ended up at that time, I don't think all of this functionality was available, it was just starting. We kind of ballooned our catalog because we have 44 brands, and essentially all 44 of those have the same products. So we took, even though we narrowed our catalog down significantly to a common catalog of products across all markets, it was like 300 or so, but 300 times 44 is a lot of products. And I think going back, were this available then, we do that with these conditional items, and we even have, like, our markets or our brands a level of the tree, which I think we would probably not do. We would use the conditional formatting for that. So it would be great. I think we could get down to like sub 500 products, or maybe even in the 200 to 300 products total, with all of these modifiers driving that. So I think this is definitely something we would want to do in the near future. You know, we don't have it in place today.
Yeah, there's no winning by having the most products. For anyone that's playing that game, you don't win. But you mentioned again, like that split between print and you know, again, there's all the way that your salespeople are divided up. That can certainly play a factor in guiding them.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, again, depending on your type of salespeople you're dealing with, old school sales guys to young people who are trying to compose and use all the new tools and stuff like that. I think that there's something there. Cool. I do want to hit on, and again, by all means, ask any questions, but in terms of our kind of time, this idea, so let me say, so I'm listening to the sales enablement, and I could see where, again, the idea of creating it so it's easier for salespeople to discover the products, whatever, build these types of things. They can add more stuff, can help me make more sales. So I'll buy your concept. I gotta still figure out how to do it internally, as everyone will, right? Because you have to sit there and work that out. But then you talked about it, client enablement, and I think that that's something to circle back on, just because that idea of letting the clients go through something to make it buying, that's really kind of appealing as well. So can you talk to that for the next 5-6 minutes?
Sure. So let's go ahead and go back to slides. Sorry, Rob, I know you're not a huge fan of them.
It's okay. I'm an arms dealer when it comes to PowerPoint, so it's like I don't always like to.
You don't practice what you preach, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, okay, we all know about OMS. We just talked about sales enablement. Now let's get to the holy grail, which is the client enablement piece. And I mean, if you think about it, it follows a logical train of thought, because if we can make things easy and fast enough for our sales team, who knows our products well, to do it in the most efficient manner possible, the logical next step for us to do is how can we simplify it further so that perhaps the client can do some of this as well, right? Or the client is getting more direct access with you. And so the idea, we have kind of 3 core ideas on how we get there. We have our customer portal. I'll just go through them in detail. And the customer portal, given that it's being developed right now, due in August, by the way, is the most concrete of the 3. So if we have some time, I'll let Rachel speak to more details about it. But our customer portal, what it facilitates is direct access between the advertiser and you, the publisher. And Matt, you should know about this one pretty well. We're able to provide them information such as how their campaigns are performing, a place to submit their creatives, a place where creative approval back and forth can happen, and then with the phase 2 goal of allowing them to even do bookings, rebookings, reminders of when a booking is coming up. So that is a place for the publisher, for the client to go, that gives them a lot of the information that they're asking you today. That can, but that the idea is to facilitate that communication, that contact. The next one is programmatic guaranteed. Now, we're not talking about Google's programmatic guaranteed. Don't worry, we actually connected to that a long time ago. We were the first one to get a working connection to PG, and we do preferred deals as well, and PMPs are coming. What we're referring to is what we call our FT Adapt product, and it is programmatic guaranteed, but it goes back to that mission statement that we want to help the publisher thrive. And we feel like a 10% rev share fee for the services provided are a little steep. And so what we want to provide is within the OMS the ability to transact programmatically. That is to say, to create a deal ID that can go into the DSP of the advertiser, but that it's traffic to the ad server as a standard line with whatever priority that you want. So Google won't know that it's programmatic guaranteed. It's only identified as such in AdBook. And so not only does that save you on the 10%, but it's also providing you with an additional set of targeting that you can have, because there are some restrictions when you're running a PG order through GAM in terms of how you can target. Because it's a standard line, there are no such restrictions in our product. And that one is being conceptualized and moving to development. And then the last one is a little bit more aspirational because it's a little further along. And that is the AI recommendation. That's basically using machine learning to take all the data that you've seen here and all the data that happens as campaigns get executed, performance metrics get entered in, to be able to suggest both on the sales enablement layer, mind you, to the salesperson as well as to the client, this has worked well, this hasn't. You ought to consider this because of other things that you've done in the past. So that's kind of like that final layer. And again, the whole goal here is to get as much direct access between you and the client and to remove as many middlemen as possible so that you're not taking any of those tech taxes, you're keeping more of your money, and you're making more money.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, I'll give you till July on the customer portal. How about that? That'll be our negotiation.
Well, I think you got to talk to Matt because you guys may be able to form an alliance there.
Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, there we go. That's how this works. Now we team up on you. So just going through it, just as kind of like maybe last thoughts on this. Obviously, the idea of the order management system is efficiency. And obviously, you got to have a good, sturdy foundation to build all this stuff on. Then it really, I think the part that obviously getting more into the hands of sales, more of an idea of what they can sell, how they can sell it, and piecing that together. I guess your part of your concept there is that like by breaking away from strict products to more targeting and build the product allows some little bit more composition and maybe even some simplification of the concept. So, okay,
Yep.
I'll buy that. And then also like that this is in Salesforce where I'm doing that, but also being able to make it easier for account management to do what they do. And then down the road, what we're looking at is getting it so that clients can go, that communication with a customer can be done kind of through this back-end system and streamline that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think for the client enablement piece, I mean, we just kind of scratched the surface here. There's a lot that we can say. So I think we may need a second impression for that one.
Okay. Yeah, so many impression jokes. AdTech is nothing but just a field day of jokes to be had. Cool. I mean, I think that's, first of all, that's great. Is there anyone else that has any comments or questions? I know sometimes it's easy to kind of sit back and let me drive, but I want to make sure you spent the time. Did you leave with any questions? For those of you that are already in there, we do have the FatTail Slack channel on the Beeler.Tech Slack workspace. So a good spot to kind of bring up some ideas there, share some of those stories, as well as pose the questions. And you guys you always answer every one of my emails so far. So I feel good that you'll get back to me as we sit there and try to think through these concepts. So, all right, with that, I'll excuse all of you, though I would like, I know who's on this call. So some of you are in trouble. So Al, thanks. Al, Rachel, any final thoughts?
No, I think we're good, Rob. Thanks for taking the time and letting us show you our concepts.
Great. Thank you.